we know.
Yeah.
We told you.
That's why we brought you here.
He passes out. And you're like,
I love that character, though. I love that. I love when actors play roles sort of unselfishly. So I love Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China because he's just kind of an idiot. I love when characters let other people shine, or they're not afraid to be passing out, or, Jack Burton shoots into the ceiling, rocks fall on him and knock him out. In this movie, Depp is just kind of a goober.
What do you think about the up-and-coming remake of Big Trouble in Little China? No.
Listen, remakes have been happening since forever. I mean, Great Train Robbery had a remake the year later. So I mean, always, even when sound came into pictures, a lot of silent films were remade.
Remade with sound.
So I mean, it's gonna happen, but why?
There's so many movies. It's like, why? What would be the point? I mean, I was expecting, honestly, to see a Sleepy Hollow remake relatively soon because it's been 20 years. But it's almost like, why? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I mean, you got to think about this. Like, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring is going to be 20 years in 2 years?
Yeah.
So
that's nuts.
That would be nuts to have that make a remake of that. Or they were kicking around The Fly remake too. They've been doing that forever though. But it was 30 years since the original one. And they remade that in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then it's
58, right?
57, 58-ish. Yeah. So I think.
And then 88?
I want to say 86.
Got it.
I'm sure I'm wrong.
30 years or so.
Yeah, give or take 30 years. So then I think it was for 30 years after that they were going to do that as well. And just
The Fly every 30 years. The buzz is going to be great. Wait,
they missed a perfect opportunity to put in the song "The Human Fly" by the Cramps. It's like, come on, why didn't they do that? But yeah, it wouldn't have. I guess David Cronenberg didn't want to do that.
That'd be funny if he played baseball and hit a fly ball. Flyboys as flies in airplanes.
Flies in airplanes in
World War II, the Nazis.
Oh gosh.
Genetically modified pilots into flies and then put them into planes. Flyboys. Coming soon.
Coming at you. That's the tagline of the movie. Flyboys.
July 7th.
Speaking of great taglines, remember the tagline of Sleepy Hollow? Heads will roll. I did it's like, what is this, A Knight's Tale, but with a Headless Horseman?
And if they do, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs have that song, Head off with your head.
Oh my God, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs.
Now, this movie could be released in the theaters now.
Yeah.
And except for that one little CGI bit, it wouldn't look dated.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think the two CGI bits, especially with the skull and with the witch, I think if they cleaned that up a little bit, it would do equally as well. I mean, of course, everyone would go, "Oh, wow, Johnny Depp," before he became Johnny Depp. Or no, I guess he was still in his Johnny Deppness at that point because right after he had done Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas,
yeah,
and then after that, he just couldn't shake Hunter Thompson for I don't know how many decades almost now. It's been almost 15 years. Or no, it's been over 20 years. Sorry, since they made that, and he still can't shake that character, and it's like, nah. But I mean, his career is kind of iffy right now. So
yeah,
I don't know if he still has the same star power as he did in the early 2000s as he did with Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'd go see it on the big screen if I could see this on the big screen,
without a doubt.
All right, how about this? Let's go call Regal Cinemas right now and take a break, and when we come back, we'll watch this movie on the big screen, and we'll talk about that experience while you're eating animal crackers. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And we've been gone for a while, but I want to tell you why. Chris Kelly and I, we built a time machine. And we went back to 1999 and got stuck. But it was pretty awesome because we got to watch Deep Blue Sea in the theater again. We got to watch Audition in the theater again, Sixth Sense in the theater again, Blair Witch Project in the theater again, Ravenous in the theater again, Lake Placid in the theater again, Mummy in the theater again, and Idle Hands in the theater again. We got to watch all those again. And then by the end of 99, I figured out the time machine. Now we're back.
It was a pretty good year.
Yeah, good year.
I'll give it that, yeah.
So a lot of people kind of bag on the 90s for horror. But if you look at 99, I think it had some interesting films that were released. So, I mean, Deep Blue Sea, I love it. You know what? I love it. I'm not going to make any excuses. It's brilliant.
Oh, Deep Blue Sea is one of the greatest. I mean...
genetically modified shark movies ever made.
Oh, my God.
And then Audition, that's a very, very good Japanese thriller / horror film. I mean, that puts you through the ringer.
I saw that whenever, when I was in Penn State, and they used to do every weekend that they would do, international film series. And there was like, one room, and I think it was the Carnegie Building, and they would show international films. And I believe that was that one week they did, horror films, and they showed that. And I was like, whoa.
Blows your mind, yeah. That was next level.
What?
Yeah. And then you had the massive blockbusters, Sixth Sense and Blair Witch. I mean, those were massive.
Oh my God. Films. I already gave you my Blair Witch story, but yeah, it was
massive.
Huge.
I think I've told this story a billion times, but I was working a billion times. I was working in a theater when My Best Friend's Wedding and Blair Witch came out, and the entire lobby was packed. I mean, everyone just packed out those theaters. Blair Witch was an event, and so was Sixth Sense. And then you had Ravenous, which has become a really fun cult classic. Not fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I forgot about that movie.
Good movie. We're going to pot about it in the future. And then Lake Placid.
Yeah, I love that movie. It makes fun of itself. It knows that it's a movie about a prehistoric giant alligator. It's kind of like The Meg, but for the 90s.
Yeah, it's cheeky and it's fun and successful at what it is. Mm-hmm. Idle Hands we talked about, which is getting a lot of love, by the way. But after watching it, a lot of love. And then also Mummy. I mean, that's not really a horror movie.
That's more of a comedy, action comedy.
It's like a yarn, right?
It's more of an action film. Yeah. I don't know if you'd really classify it as a horror film, but I guess because the original, like however many they made, were horror films, and they kind of took that. But yeah,
I love it. And then Sleepy Hollow, of course, which is a beautiful art house. So it was a good year for not slasher cinema, but for
96 was a lot better for slasher.
Yeah,
they reinvented it with Scream.
Yeah. I just think this was a good year for other horror. Does that make sense? Monster horror, psychological, that kind of stuff.
I think they were trying to take different forms of horror and just trying to wrap it into a new thing. I mean, they already tried to do the
which
I almost lost my train of thought for a second there, but they tried to bring back the like old legend horror films, and then try to do that again with the 90s. And then I don't know if Sleepy Hollow was kind of like at the tail end of it, but it just kind of didn't really work anymore. I mean, they did reinvent a few things, but it didn't really take off like they probably were planning to. I mean, they were very successful. I guess audiences probably weren't really too concerned, because I think in the late 90s, early 2000s was more of the kind of like the invention of like the low budget horror, which with Blair Witch Project blew it right through the planet. Yeah. And then you also had romantic comedies taking off big time too, because that would have been like almost the 10-year anniversary of Pretty Woman. So then they were like, oh my God, I remember that movie. Let's bring Richard Gere back, because now he's more like the handsome father.
That was huge.
Oh God, yeah.
That movie was a blockbuster.
Oh God.
Julia Roberts' run in the 90s was sick. She had My Best Friend's Wedding.
That's why you don't see her anymore. What's the point?
That was, I mean, that was, so she was pulling Marvel numbers.
Oh God, yeah.
In the 90s with My Best Friend's Wedding and Runaway Bride and Notting Hill. Those were
all those movies back to back to back. They were huge.
Blockbusters. And then also, this is very random, but I just want to know what you thought about the fake cardinal in Sleepy Hollow.
I loved it, just like Tim Burton said. He said, remember, he says that in the commentary. He says it turns out that was the hardest part of making the movie. He said because there was one cardinal in all of England, and they couldn't get it. So what they did was they painted a pigeon red and scuffed up the feathers. And he looked at it like, "Are you kidding me?" So they made a fake cardinal. And I remember seeing this in the theaters. And they when I saw that, I remember the 15-year-old me was watching this and going, "There's something not right about that cardinal." But
it works.
What are you gonna do? And it fits his whole like everything is kind of off story world that Tim Burton created. It totally goes with everything.
And also, this kind of leads into something. But Ebert said that every shot in this movie is beautiful, but it's all fake. Not fake. I don't know if I'm using the right word. None of it looks like a real world. It's very, he could just, it's a different world. It feels like a film. He's not, like, he wasn't going for Blair Witch, is what I'm saying, I guess. He was going for some artifice.
Well, in the original article that he wrote, he says that, he's trying to distinguish it from the, Hammer films that, elevates it by sheer style and acting into sometimes entertaining and, rather elegant.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's an elegant movie.
Oh, it's beautifully done. I liked how he compared in the Roger Ebert's original article. He compared it to Sleepy Hollow. He compared it to Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. The way that it looked,
I'd say so.
It's beautifully done.
What are horror films that are better looking than Bram Stoker's Dracula and this movie? Are they like Shining? I would say since then. How's that sound? Like, so since then.
I have to say,
production design, look.
House of the Devil, as I mentioned earlier. But you really have to watch that movie again if anybody out there has Shudder. Watch it with Joe Bob Briggs, but he did it on the last drive-in. And I strongly recommend watching it because he definitely talks about how everything was intricately made. It's a beautifully done film. I love that movie, House of the Devil.
What about big budget horror films? So, this was a $100 million movie. Obviously, Bram Stoker's Dracula had a big budget. American Zoetrope produced this, and Francis Ford Coppola's his name is on
the executive producer. He even says that in the commentary. He didn't even realize that he was an executive producer until after he got like the first rough take. He had a trailer of it, and it had Francis Ford Coppola's name on it.
Produced by Francis Ford Coppola. What? Yeah. Damn American Zoetrope. We did Valley Girl and Martha Coolidge. Yeah, she got started with American Zoetrope. So listen to our Valley Girl podcast.
Yeah, and it turns out they became very good friends.
Yep. So she worked for them too. But yeah, I thought that was pretty random seeing Francis Ford. But I guess that explains a little bit why.
The way it looks so stylish and like really good as opposed to if you just had Tim Burton. Because you got to remember Tim Burton at the time, his movies weren't, I guess they weren't really what you saw now, what people think of now when they think of Tim Burton. Yeah. Because he had underneath his belt, he had Batman Returns. Beetlejuice. He had one other.
Ed Wood, which reunited him with Depp and Landau.
Oh, yeah. I loved Ed Wood. Yeah. That's such a good movie.
Yeah. Mars Attacks.
He was kind of known as reinventing I guess you'd say older films or like the older genre, the older feel, and trying to make it feel more like how he envisioned what the 1950s would have looked like. Yeah. So it's like with Mars Attacks, it's kind of what he would imagine the 1950s, even though it takes place nowadays. Yeah. I mean, everything is very much the same thing with Edward Scissorhands. So it's like what he would envision it would look like. Yeah. If he was the one creating it, if he was God in that moment, that's how he would create it.
And he did that with this perfectly.
Yes, absolutely.
Because he got the control. Yeah. That's neat. And so, all right. So the plot in this, right? So you have the widow Van... Oh, it's all very Dutch names. I love it since my last name's Hoffmeyer. So you have Lady Van Tassel, right? She is married to Baltus Van Tassel, played by Michael Gambon. Then his daughter is Katrina Van Tassel. Ricci was 18 when she made this, by the way. Wow. Then you have Bram, but he got Casper Van Dien in half. Young Mazda. So that was a good one.
I like that. You know what he has? He has a show that hasn't been released, but he's filming it right now. It's called Cult Classics with Casper Van Dien.
What?
And he interviews actors and crew members from cult classic films.
That's awesome.
I know. I want to watch it so bad. I'm sorry.
Where's it going to be on?
I didn't see where it was on, but I saw it was being filmed right now, and I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to watch this."
Like a starship.
Yeah, he's the perfect person to use. And of course,
I love that.
The movie that he did where he plays James Dean. That what is it called? Live Fast, Die Young. It's like that's probably the worst title you could ever do for James Dean.
Die, Casper Van Dien or Dine or he's
he grew up on a street that was named after him, his family.
Hey.
Did you know that?
No.
He grew up I forget where in New Jersey, but there's the street that he grew up on is like Van Dien Drive or something, and that was named after his family. He comes from a very rich and affluent family, which you could kind of tell-ish. I don't know if you really could, but he kind of has that air of that feel. And
he's great riding horses.
Yeah. And Johnny Depp was not. Yeah. But he learned roughly how to ride a horse while they were making this movie, and then so much so he actually adopted the horse that he rides.
Yeah, because they were going to put it to sleep.
Well, it was the 90s. So. Yeah, you're right. Let's not talk about Milo and Otis.
That horse got some tomato juice poured on him. Kill it.
Glue factory.
Yeah. What's that on that horse? A leaf? Dead. All right, so... Oh, I don't like it.
Good thing we don't live in the 90s anymore.
Yeah. Put hammer pants on that horse and then shoot it. So she starts off the movie by killing Martin Landau. No, why does the Headless Horseman kill the driver? Because the driver...
I think it was kind of like they just wanted to establish the fact that this was a horror film.
But they only did it. It only killed who she asked. So did the driver know about the thing as well?
I don't think so. I think that they just kind of fudged that just to establish that this is a horror film, and you didn't know what was going to happen next or who was going to get killed off. Because if they did do that, if they did do from the start, I'm the one who's actually controlling it, it's like, oh, come on. But it's like they had to establish right off the bat that this is a horror film. I really did like to go along with the beginning of the movie. I liked how it just started off smashed with the music. But I really...
That's what he said, too. Cue the music.
He has a lot of like random moments.